It was 6 a.m. and the alarm blared loudly, waking him from a deep sleep. He reached out, hand fumbling for the snooze button. Just 5 more minutes, he thought. But then a thought hit him. What if today was the day that changed everything? He didn't know why he felt this sudden burst of clarity. Maybe it was because he had spent weeks putting things off, promising himself that tomorrow would be different. Yet, tomorrow always seemed to slip away. But today felt like it could be different. His feet hit the cold floor. He stood up, feeling the weight of the decision he had just made. He wasn't sure how he was going to do it, but something inside him told him that the journey towards a better version of himself started right now. He quickly got dressed and grabbed his running shoes. In the past, he would have talked himself out of it. It's too cold, or I'm too tired, he would think. But today was different. His mind had already decided, and his body followed. Stepping outside, the fresh morning air hit his face. He couldn't believe how peaceful it was. The world was still asleep, but he was awake. His heart began to race, not from the physical effort, but from the excitement of doing something he had been avoiding for so long. For the next 30 minutes, he pushed himself. His legs burned, his lungs felt tight, but he kept going. The pain wasn't as bad as he thought. In fact, it felt empowering. When he finished, he felt a sense of pride he hadn't felt in years. The truth was he had always struggled with self-discipline. It wasn't that he didn't have dreams. He had plenty. But every time he set a goal, he would find a way to avoid it. Whether it was procrastination, fear, or just plain laziness, he couldn't keep up the momentum for long. But today was different. He walked back inside, sweat dripping from his forehead, but his mind was clear. He knew this was just the beginning. That one small act of pushing past the urge to stay comfortable had unlocked something inside him. The next day, the same thought crossed his mind. What if today was the day? But this time, he didn't hesitate. He woke up without hitting snooze. He didn't talk himself out of his plans. He had learned something the day before. Self-discipline wasn't about being perfect. It was about doing what you said you would do, even when it was hard. As days went by, he began to notice something strange. The more he disciplined himself, the more natural it became. He began waking up earlier, setting goals, and achieving them one by one. At first, they were small wins. Drinking more water, going for a walk, finishing a project he had put off for months. But with each victory, he felt a growing sense of confidence. There were still days when he struggled. There were still moments when his mind told him it would be easier to skip a workout or take a break from his work. But the difference now was that he didn't let those thoughts win. He remembered how good it felt to push through and keep his promises to himself. Weeks passed, and the change was noticeable. He was becoming someone he was proud of. Not because he was perfect, but because he was sticking with it. His habits were shifting. He was creating routines that kept him grounded. And slowly, his goals, once far away, were starting to feel within reach. It wasn't just about exercising more or being productive. The true power of self-discipline lay in the fact that it changed the way he saw himself. He began to believe that he could actually follow through on his dreams. He wasn't someone who gave up anymore. He was someone who made progress, no matter how small. But there was still something deeper that changed. The real shift wasn't in what he could do, but in how he thought. He began to see himself as someone capable. When challenges came, instead of running away, he leaned in. He knew now that his mind was his biggest ally if he could just stay disciplined enough to trust it. One morning, as he sat with his cup of coffee, he realized something important. The hardest part wasn't the work or the effort. The hardest part was starting. The hardest part was showing up, even when he didn't feel like it. The moment he made that choice to take action, everything else fell into place. Self-discipline didn't mean being perfect or having everything figured out. It meant having the strength to make a choice, even when it was hard. It meant being okay with mistakes and setbacks, because they were part of the journey. It was about understanding that consistency, not perfection, was the key to real change. The power of self-discipline didn't come from avoiding discomfort. It came from pushing through it. It came from showing up every day, even when you didn't feel like it. It was the small victories that added up to something bigger than he ever imagined. It was the simple act of not giving up. And as he looked back on the last few months, he saw just how far he had come. What started with one small decision, a decision to wake up and take action, had turned into a complete transformation. His dreams weren't just dreams anymore. They were goals he was actively working towards. In the end, he realized something even more important. The true power of self-discipline wasn't in achieving everything he wanted, but in becoming someone who could trust himself, a person who could believe in his own strength, who could rely on his own actions, and who knew that no matter what, he would never stop trying. So, the next time you think about giving up or taking the easy way out, remember, self-discipline isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up, pushing through the difficult moments, and believing that no matter how hard it gets, you have the strength to keep going. Because once you start, there's no telling how far you can go.